This is Climate Bowl, a co-innovation project with strong partners from industry and science, 3 years' time, and a mission to enable companies to track emissions along product value chains. Sounds great. So what is it about? To put it simple, we want to give consumers and industry the means to fight climate change by tool-based emission tracking. Preserving a livable planet and averting the worst impacts of climate change means cutting greenhouse gas emissions to as close as zero. More and more countries are committing to the net zero path, and this means reducing 45% of emissions by 2030 and reaching net zero by 2050. Good, but are we on track? The time has come to back up these commitments by bold and credible action. And this is what Climate Bowl is about. Our mission is to enable the industry to track their emissions, identify potentials to avoid them, and empower our customers on their way to carbon neutrality. And this is not only demanded by our planet, but also by consumers. They want to make more sustainable product choices, but how am I supposed to know which products are sustainable or not? How do I know it's not greenwashing? And what happens from sourcing the raw materials to the final product? The industry is not only called upon to drastically reduce their emissions, but also to provide transparency and give consumers the tools to assess the impact they can make by buying green. At the same time, we see increasing requirements from investors and more guidelines that force companies to act. For stakeholders in our global value chains, this poses new challenges. Tracking a carbon footprint from raw materials to end of life cycle requires an unprecedented level of collaboration. Each company in a supply chain needs to calculate their carbon footprint, but how are they supposed to do that? Most companies do not even know their own emissions, and even if they do, for them to calculate a carbon footprint would require knowing the shares of their suppliers. But can you trust their data? Is it reliable? And did they use standards correctly? And then how can you communicate the data to show that you comply with legal guidelines and provide it to the next stakeholder in the supply chain? Climate Bowl has the solution, a software-based, standardized and trustworthy carbon footprint tracking and avoidance system operating along whole value chains, providing an unmatched level of transparency and delivering never-seen-before guidance in reaching net zero. It connects industry partners and comes with an intelligent assistance system, guiding the path to net zero. And all of this is done so that legal guidelines are complied and investors' requirements are met. Designed to work in any industry for every client while meeting individual customer needs and adapting to specific product value chains. All of this works with norm-based data models we develop in close collaboration with our software partners to calculate a standardized carbon footprint along value chains. It is then automatically shared to the next stakeholder in the supply chain and ready to communicate to customers, investors, and law enforcement. For each of our customers, the intelligent assistance system will propose highly efficient measures to reduce and avoid carbon emissions, taking the whole value chain into account. We at Climate Bowl have understood that the challenge of net zero along global value chain can only be achieved through collaboration. That is why we brought together relevant stakeholders from industry and science to collaborate, build an ecosystem for climate-neutral business, and together develop and validate the carbon footprint tracking and avoidance system that both industry and our planet so desperately need. Join us on our way to net zero emissions along global value chains.